7th and 8th grade folk, we are to the end. We've made it to the end of Hamlet. Pat yourselves on the back. You are doing something extraordinary. Let's get into Scene 2 of Act 5. So actually, I'm going to do some skipping around with this scene and this, that, and the other. Also, if you look on the assignment, I put some videos in. This scene is so much better when you see it than when I explain it. So I'm going to go through this kind of quickly, skip a little bit, but I definitely want you guys to watch those videos. I'm going to do the scene preview, but I'm not going to do the words to watch. Now, normally when we read this in class, I skip the scene preview for the last scene because it ruins everything. But because we are doing this the hard way online, I'm going to go ahead and read it. So, scene preview. Shakespeare chooses to end this play with one long final scene. After being pulled away from Ophelia's burial, Hamlet reveals to Horatio that King Claudius planned to have him killed in England. While Hamlet and Horatio are discussing the spoiled murder plot, Orsic, a courtier, approaches the two men. Orsic explains that the king would like Hamlet to face Laertes in a fencing match. He even adds that King Claudius has made a big wager on Hamlet winning. Hamlet agrees to participate in this match despite Horatio's protests. During the fencing match, Hamlet proves to be a worthy opponent for the skilled Laertes. Queen Gertrude is so impressed with Hamlet's fencing skills, she decides to honor his great performance with a toast. But she accidentally drinks from the poison wine that King Claudius had prepared for Hamlet. Then, Laertes wounds Hamlet with his sharpened and poisoned sword. Soon after, he and Hamlet somehow fall to the ground, and in the confusion of grappling on the floor, the men switch swords. In a truly ironic twist of fate, Hamlet then wounds Laertes with his own sword. As the queen begins to feel the effects of the poison, she falls and cries out a warning to Hamlet that someone has poisoned the wine intended for him to drink. After she dies, Laertes, also feeling the effects of the poison he has put on his sword, reveals to Hamlet what he has done in an attempt to avenge his father's murder, admitting that King Claudius helped him plan this murder. Hamlet then turns and stabs King Claudius with the poisoned sword, killing him, and thereby finally avenging his father's death. Before Laertes and Hamlet die, they make amends with one another. Also, Hamlet asks Horatio to explain the twisted events that led to this bloody scene to all the people of Denmark. He also lets Horatio know that he would like young Fortinbras to take over the throne of Denmark. Just as Hamlet dies, Fortinbras enters the castle. The play ends with Horatio making arrangements to have Hamlet's body carried out for burial preparations with full honors. He is also preparing to speak to the masses and explain what has caused the death of the entire royal family, with the soon-to-be King Fortinbras at his side. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to skip the words to watch. There are a million of them, oh my goodness. I am going to put the entire act on the assignment so you can read through it, but I'm going to skip through it just for time's sake and to save your brains. But I am going to explain to you what I'm skipping. So the scene begins basically right after Laertes and Hamlet have had their epic fight at Ophelia's burial. And, Hamlet's walking with his good friend Horatio, and Horatio truly proves to be his friend all the way to the end. He just does. But while he's walking with Horatio, they're talking, they're discussing, and Hamlet actually explains to him in detail what happened whenever he was on his way to England with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. If you remember, King Claudius has sent them with the letter that's supposed to go to the King of England, and it's basically asking the King of England to kill Hamlet. Look, Hamlet's crazy, he's a threat to our throne, you and I are friends, I need you to do this favor for me. Hamlet finds this letter, he reads it, and he realizes, oh my goodness, King Claudius is trying to kill me. So, he comes up with his own little twisted plan. Hamlet writes his own letter, pretending to be King Claudius, and ironically enough, in that letter, he asks that the King of England kill Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Now, Horatio, after he hears this, he's like, well, wait a minute, how did you seal this fake letter? Well, back in the day, and actually a lot of times you still see this now, in order for a document to be official, it needed a seal on it. And that seal would be made, after the letter was folded and this and the other. On the fold, they put a drop of wax or a piece of wax, and then they take a hot piece of metal and they press into the wax, and it would leave a special mark, and that mark was called your seal. And if that seal was there, that meant that this was truly an official document. It was real. And that would either be on the end of something that looked like a pen, like a signet, or it would be on a ring. If you've ever seen a class ring and the way that they're shaped and this and the other, in a lot of ways that's a throwback to the old school seals. So you take your ring or you take your signet, you press it in that wax, and that would prove this is officially for me. Now Hamlet, being the prince, being the king's son, he has a seal for the king. It probably came from Hamlet the First, not King Claudius. But he gets to seal the letter up and make it look like it officially came from the king. And if you remember, in all the craziness of the pirates attacking the ship, Hamlet goes with the pirates, but Rosencrantz and Guildenstern keep going to England. And so Rosencrantz and Guildenstern probably got to England and probably got murdered. Now, while Hamlet is telling Horatio this, he is so tickled. He thinks it's so funny. He has no remorse whatsoever for killing Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, basically, which is really terrible, but okay, whatever. And while they're talking, in comes in a courtier named Orsic. Orsic is letting Hamlet know that King Claudius and Laertes would like Hamlet to come to the full fancy court in the castle and have a big fencing match. And he even explains that King Claudius has put a big wager on Hamlet's head that Hamlet will win. Hamlet cannot resist. He just can't take it. He's moved with jealousy, just like King Claudius said, because Orsic's like, oh man, Laertes is so good at fencing, and Hamlet's like, he's not that good, blah, blah, blah. And so Hamlet agrees to the fencing match. Now, Horatio kind of has some doubts. He kind of doesn't like it. He's like, I don't know about this, blah, blah, blah. Hamlet is not to be swayed. He's going for it. He's sold. Now, wouldn't you know it, as soon as Orsic leaves, another person from the king comes right on in the room and says, hey, look, the king really wants you to come to the fencing match. And guess what? He bet all this stuff on you winning. And are you coming? Okay, Horatio's like, I don't know about this. He's like, what if you don't win? What if you lose? And Hamlet's like, no, I'm not going to lose. I'm good at fencing. And then Horatio's like, oh, but I don't know. Is your gut telling you to do this? Something about this doesn't seem right. And Horatio says, if your mind dislike anything, obey it. I will forestall their repair hither and say you're not fit. Hey, if anything inside you is saying don't do this, I will lie for you and say you're sick. Don't do it. And Hamlet says, no. He says, if my time comes now, if my time comes later, doesn't matter. We're all going to die sometime, which is also definitely a demonstration of Hamlet's weakened mental state. And actually, right after he makes that statement is where I'm actually going to start reading the text. Okay, so basically we're walking to this nice fancy hall in the castle. There is a table with snacks because all the cool people in the castle are going to watch it, with refreshments. So there's a table prepared, there's trumpets, drums, officers with cushions. We have the king and queen, we have Orsic the courtier, and all the state with foils, daggers, and Laertes. The king says, come, Hamlet, come, take this hand from me. The king puts Laertes' hand into Hamlet's. So before the fencing match begins, Hamlet and Laertes speak, and we're actually going to see Hamlet apologize to Laertes. He says, give me your pardon, sir. I have done you wrong, but pardon it as you are a gentleman. This presence knows, and you must need have heard how I am punished with sore distraction. What I have done, that might your nature, honor, and exception roughly awake, I here proclaim, was madness. Was it Hamlet wronged Laertes? Never Hamlet. If Hamlet from himself be taken away, and when he's not himself does wrong Laertes, then Hamlet does it not. Hamlet denies it. Who does it then? His madness. If it be so, Hamlet is of the faction that is wrong. His madness is poor Hamlet's enemy. Sir, in this audience, Let my disclaiming from a purposed evil free me so far in your generous thoughts that I have shot my arrow over the house and hurt my brother. So here Hamlet is apologizing to Laertes for all the terrible things he's done to his family. He's killed Polonius, he made Ophelia go crazy, she kills herself in her madness. And Hamlet gives a really interesting justification for everything. He says, I didn't do it. It was my madness, my insanity. Now, we've already discussed this, especially with 8th grade. There are a lot of people who think that Hamlet really truly was insane. But there are also a lot of people who think this man was not crazy at all. And in that case, this apology here is very, very disingenuous. If he really was just acting like he was crazy, he has no business saying, look, I'm sorry for killing your dad and making your sister kill herself because I was crazy. Okay, this is not a good apology. However, because it's made in front of everyone and Laertes is someone with some position and some power, he can't lose his mind and, start cussing, Hamlet out and this and the other. He accepts the apology at least in word. Laertes says, I am satisfied in nature, whose motive in this case should stir me most to my revenge. But in terms of honor, I stand aloof and will no reconcilement till, by some elder masters of known honor, I have a voice and precedence of peace to keep my name ungored. But till that time, I do receive your offered love, like love, and will not wrong it. So Laertes begrudgingly says, okay, fine. Hamlet's got to take it, okay? He says, I embrace it freely, and will this brother's wager frankly pay? Give us the foils. Laertes says, come, one for me. I'll be your foil, Laertes, in my ignorance. Your skill shall like a star in the darkest night stick fiery off indeed. Okay, so here Hamlet's being humble, probably sucking up a little bit. He says, oh, Laertes, it's like I'm going to be your sword because you're so much better than me at fencing. Now we know that's not what Hamlet thinks, but he's trying to be nice. And Laertes returns that same fake niceness. He says, oh, you mock me, sir. No, by this hand. So Laertes says, oh, you're being too kind. And Hamlet's like, no, I'm not. Okay, so they're being fake. Okay, well, the king says, go in and get these guys some swords. Let's get into it. Okay, so he says, give them the foils, young Orsic, cousin Hamlet. You know the wager. Hamlet says, very well, my lord. Your grace has laid the odds on the weaker side. Okay, so remember King Claudius's bet, a really heavy wager for Hamlet winning, and Hamlet once again faking that humility. He says, oh, but you bet on the weaker person. And King Claudius keeping it going with the fakeness. He says, I do not fear it. I have seen you both, but since he is bettered, we have therefore odds. And Laertes says, this is too heavy. Let me see another. So remember, Laertes has a sword that is not blunted, and the tip of it has been dipped in poison. So while he's going through the fencing swords, he's pretending like he's trying to find one with the right weight, but really, he's trying to find the one that he sharpened and poisoned. Okay, Hamlet finds one that he likes. He says, this likes me well. These foils have all at length. Everybody says, yep, they're ready to go, and they prepare for the fencing match. Okay, Orsic says, my good lord. The king says, set me stoups of wine upon that table. If Hamlet give the first or second hit or quit in answer of the third exchange, let all the battlements of their ordained fire. The king shall drink to Hamlet's better breath, and in the cup a union shall he throw, richer than that which 4 successive kings in Denmark's crown have worn. Give me the cups, and let the kettle to the trumpet speak, the trumpet to the cannoneer without, the cannons to the heavens to earth. Now the king drinks to Hamlet. Come, begin. So then the king calls for cups to come out and some wine to be brought out. And of course, remember, he's going to try to poison Hamlet's wine. And he does it in a really interesting way. He says, and in that cup I shall put a union in if Hamlet's doing a really good job. According to that, a union is a pearl. And I know that sounds really crazy, but a way to honor someone was to put a pearl in their drink. And he says, if Hamlet is doing a great job, I'm going to put a pearl in his drink. Now, that pearl has been dipped in poison. That's how King Claudius is going to poison Hamlet's drink. Okay, so the trumpets sound, and the king says, and you, the judges, bear a wary eye. Hamlet says, come on, sir. Laertes says, come, my lord. and they play, or they begin their fencing match. So you can imagine their swords hitting each other. And the first video I have on here is them their sword match, and it's really, really good. Hamlet says 1. Laertes says no. Hamlet says judgment. Okay, so once again, the goal of fencing is to have a touch, or to hit your opponent with your sword, come in contact with them. Hamlet says, I got a touch. Laertes is like, no, you didn't. And so Hamlet says, judges, did I get a touch? And believe it or not, this line from a very insignificant person in the play is one of the most famous lines from Hamlet. Orsic says, a hit, a very palpable hit. Drums, trumpets, and shots flourish, a piece goes off. So Hamlet does score, the judges agree with him, and so there's trumpets, and there's like a gunshot, yay, go Hamlet. And I'm sure that just drove Laertes insane. He says, well again. The king says, stay, give me drink. Hamlet, this pearl is thine, here's to thy health, give me the cup. Okay, so here King Claudius puts that poison pearl in Hamlet's drink and says, here, Hamlet, take a drink, you're doing so well. Hamlet's like, no. I'm in the zone. I'll drink later. He says, I'll play this bout first. Set it by a while. Come. And they continue fencing. Hamlet gets another point. He says, another hit. What say you? Laertes even has to admit it. He says, I do confess it. And the king says, our son shall win. The queen is excited to see Hamlet doing a good job. And like any good mom, she's super excited about her baby doing a good job. And she starts trash talking. And she says, he's fat, scant of breath. Here, Hamlet, take my napkin, rub thy brows. The queen carouses to thy fortune, Hamlet. Okay, so she says, whew, come on over here, Hamlet. Let me rub your brow. You're doing such a good job. Oh my goodness, I'm so proud of you. I'm going to carouse. Carouse means to drink. Now, during this time period, it was seen as slightly inappropriate for a woman to be drinking out in public, especially the queen. It wasn't against the law, it wasn't illegal, but, it just wasn't seen as very ladylike. But here the queen says, because my son's doing such a good job, she's happy to see Hamlet and basically more at himself, she's going to have herself a drink. Now, when you know it, she's drinking out of Hamlet's poisoned cup. So Hamlet looks at his mom. He says, good madam, you're going to drink, mom? What? And the king says, Gertrude, do not drink. Now, on the one hand, on the outside, it looks like the king is just trying to make sure that Queen Gertrude stays ladylike in this and the other. But we know that King Claudius doesn't want her to drink from that cup because it's poison. Oh my gosh. And in my opinion, I feel like if King Claudius really loved Gertrude like he said, he would have done a whole lot more to keep that cup from getting to her mouth. He would have slapped it out of her hand or this and the other. But he doesn't. The queen says, I will, my lord. I pray you pardon me. And she drinks. King Claudius kind of turned to the side and he said, it is the poison cup. It's too late. So Queen Gertrude has just drank from the poison cup. Hamlet says, I dare not drink yet, madam, by and by. The queen says, come, let me wipe thy face. My lord, I'll hit him now. I do not think it. Laertes aside, and yet it is almost against my conscience. Okay, so here, while Hamlet is distracted, he's talking to his mom, this and the other, Laertes kind of makes eye contact with King Claudius and says, so should I just go ahead and just stab him now? Should I just cheat? But then also, we see that Laertes might be having second thoughts. He said, and yet it is almost against my conscience. So even though Hamlet did his family wrong and did these terrible things, Laertes feels a little bit guilty about this murder plot now. Hamlet says, come for the third, Laertes, you do but dally. I pray you pass with your best violence. I'm afeard you make a wanton of me. Say you so? Come on. They start fighting again. Orsic says, nothing, neither way. Have at you now. Laertes wounds Hamlet. Then in scuffling, they change rapiers. So here they're fighting, they're fencing, this, that, and the other, and this fencing match gets really, really physical. It gets out of control, and it even comes to the point to where they're rolling around the floor. You'll see in the video clip they're fighting upstairs and like breaking things. Things get really, really crazy. And also, Laertes wounds Hamlet. That right there lets Hamlet know something is wrong, because you're not supposed to be wounded. The swords are supposed to be blunted. So I'm sure that just drives him crazy, makes him mad. Laertes is cheating. And in this crazy, aggressive fighting that they're doing, they end up switching swords. Hamlet somehow ends up with Laertes' poisoned and sharpened foil. Okay, so the king sees that they're getting kind of out of control. They're not doing regular fencing. The king says, "Part them, they are incensed." Hamlet says, "Nay, come again." Hamlet wounds Laertes and the queen falls. Okay, so Hamlet, with Laertes' sword, stabs Laertes. And at that exact moment, the queen stands up and she faints, or she swoons. Orsic says, "Look to the queen there, ho!" Horatio says, "They bleed on both sides. How is it, my lord?" He said, wait. Why are y'all both bleeding? These swords are not supposed to be sharpened. Something's going on here. And Orsic is also confused. He says, "How is it, Laertes?" And Laertes, basically, he's kind of overwhelmed with guilt. He realizes that he's about to die, and so he's going to make a really serious confession. He says, "Why, as the woodcock to mine own spring, Orsic, I am justly killed with mine own treachery." So like an animal trapped in my own cage. So I'm trying to catch an animal and then I got stuck in my own trap. That's what I am right now. I am being killed basically by my own treachery. And then Hamlet, he's worried about his mom. He says, "How's the queen?" So the king's gonna start lying. He says, "She swoons to see them bleed." He says, "Oh, she's just overwhelmed, because it was like blood and things got out of hand. She just got a little excited." However, Queen Gertrude, laying on the ground, she realizes, no, that's not why I fainted. Something's wrong. And she says, no, the drink. Oh, my dear Hamlet, the drink, I am poisoned." And she dies. So Hamlet realizes from his mother that someone tried to poison him, and it's someone in that room. So he says, "Oh, villainy, ho, let the doors be locked, treachery, seek it out." He says, "Someone in this room tried to kill me, lock all the doors. No one's getting in, no one's getting out. We're going to figure out who did this." At that moment, Laertes falls, and Orsic leaves to make sure everything's locked and this and the other. And Laertes basically says, "You don't even need to lock the door. I'll just tell you who did it." He said, "The villainy, it is here, Hamlet. Hamlet, thou art slain. No medicine in the world can do thee good. In thee there's not a half an hour's life. The treacherous instrument in thy hand is in thy hand, unbaited and envenomed. The foul practice hath turned itself on me. Lo, here I lie, never to rise again. Thy mother's poisoned. I can no more. The king's to blame." So here Laertes lays it all out. He says, "Look, you're dead just like I'm dead. The sword you're holding is sharpened and it's covered with poison." Then he goes on to say that the King Claudius put all the stuff together and poisoned your drink. So Hamlet, he realizes what's going on. He realizes right now King Claudius has struck again to his family. He says, "The point in the venom to thy work." And he wounds the king. So he actually goes and he stabs the king with the poisoned sword. So ironically, not only does Laertes fall by this poisoned sword, so does King Claudius. But Hamlet has to take it one step further. Now everyone in the room freaks out. They're like, treason, what in the world? Someone just stabbed the king? What the crap? Okay, so the king says, "Oh, yet defend me, friends, I am but hurt." Ironically though, no one comes to help him. And Hamlet, like I said, takes it one step further. He says, "Here, thou incestuous, murderous, damned Dane, drink of this potion. Is thy union here? Follow my mother." And the king dies. So Hamlet, after he stabs King Claudius, you can imagine him walking up to his body on the ground, and he actually forces his mouth open and pours the rest of the poison wine into his mouth. And with that, King Claudius dies also by his own murderous plot. Laertes, you can imagine him laying on the ground and he's, confessing. He says he is justly served. It is a poison tempered by himself. Exchange forgiveness with me, noble Hamlet. Mine and my father's death come not upon thee, nor thine on me. And he dies. So here we have a real apology. Laertes says, "I forgive you, and I just ask you forgive me." And Hamlet is going to accept that. He says, "Heaven make thee free of it. I follow thee. I am dead, Horatio, wretched queen. Adieu. You that look pale and tremble at this chance, that are but mutes or audience to this act, had I but time, as this fell sergeant death is strict in his arrest. Oh, I could tell you, but let it be. Horatio, I am dead. Thou livest. Report me in my cause of right to the unsatisfied. Never believe it. I am more an antique Roman than a Dane. Here's yet some liquor left. Okay, so Hamlet realizes that he is about to die, just like Laertes has just died in front of him. And he's realizing he's in a room full of people, and all those people are freaking out. They're pale, they're trembling, they have no idea what's going on. They're literally watching the royal family die right before their eyes. And Hamlet says, man, if I just had time, I could explain to them what's going on and why all this stuff happened, but I don't. And then he looks at Horatio and he says, Horatio, look, you can talk to them. You can tell them what's going on. You understand everything better than anyone else. And here there is a beautiful, bittersweet moment. Horatio says, nope, I'm not a Danish person. I'm like an antique Roman. And ancient Romans were notorious for committing suicide. And Horatio was so upset that his best friend is about to die, he tries to kill himself too. He tries to grab the cup, see if there's some poison left. He's going to try to drink it. And Hamlet's going to stop him and say, no, no, no. He says, as thou art a man, give me the cup, let go. By heaven, I'll have it. Oh God, Horatio, what a wounded name. Things standing thus unknown shall I leave behind me. If thou didst ever hold me in thine heart. Sorry, let me get over here. Absent from this felicity a while, and in this harsh world draw thy breath in pain to tell my story. So they said, Horatio, if you're really truly my friend, you really want to honor me, don't follow me in death, but tell my story, explain to everyone what's going on. Now while Hamlet's talking, they can hear marching coming from afar. And he says, what warlike noise is this? Now we're going to re-enter Orsic, and he comes and he says, young Fortinbras with conquest from Poland to the ambassadors of England gives this warlike volley. So at this moment when all the royal family is dying these tragic deaths, Fortinbras has returned. He's come back from Poland. Remember, he wanted to pass through Denmark. That was like their agreement. I won't invade, Denmark if you let me pass through your country. And he's coming back. Also with him, there are ambassadors from England who are bringing news that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Now imagine what they're about to run into though. And so Hamlet's last words are, oh, I die, Horatio. The potent poison quite overcrows my spirit. I cannot live to hear the news from England, but I do prophesy the election lights on Fortinbras. He has my dying voice, so tell him with the occurrence more and less which have solicited. The rest is silence. So also, Hamlet on his, with his last breath, he decides who's going to take over the throne. All the royal family is dead. So the question is, who's going to take over Denmark? And in some weird, odd, complicated, very ridiculous way, Fortinbras is related to Hamlet's family. And so Fortinbras actually has a claim to the throne. So eventually, Fortinbras basically will be the king of Norway and Denmark. There'll be a joint kingdom. And with that, Hamlet, our main character, dies. And you can imagine Horatio looking at his friend. Maybe he's holding his body and he says, now cracks a noble heart. Good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. March within. Why does this drum come hither? Enter Fortinbras with the ambassadors and with drums, colors, and attendants. Now poor Fortinbras and the ambassadors from England are thinking they're coming to the castle to do some regular old castle business, and they are presented with craziness. The king's dead, the queen's dead, Hamlet's dead, Laertes is dead, and there's death everywhere. The people in the room are freaked out. You can imagine them just being completely shocked. And so Fortinbras says, where is this sight? And Horatio answers, he says, what is it you would see if aught of woe or wonder cease your search? And Fortinbras, still shocked, says, this query cries on havoc. O proud death, what feast is toward in thine eternal cell that thou so many princes at a shot so bloodily hast struck? And just like Fortinbras is shocked, so is the ambassador from England. They say, oh my goodness, this sight is dismal, and our affairs from England come too late. The ears are senseless that should give us hearing to tell him his commandment is fulfilled, that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Where should we have our thanks? So Fortinbras and the ambassadors are just shocked by what they see. Horatio responds. He said, not from his mouth had it the ability of life to thank you. He never gave commandment for their death, but since so jump upon this bloody question. You from the Polish wars and you from England are here arrived. Give order that these bodies high on a stage be placed to the view. And let me speak to the yet unknowing world how these things came about. So shall you hear of carnal, bloody, and unnatural acts, of accidental judgments, casual slaughters, of deaths put on by cunning and forced cause, and in this upshot, purposes mistook, fallen on the inventors' heads. All this can I truly deliver. So here Horatio says, look, I know you guys are shocked. I know you're wanting answers. Do this for me. Go ahead and make sure everybody prepares the bodies, put them somewhere where they can be viewed, and give me a way to speak to the crowd, to tell everybody what's happened. And so here we can see that Horatio is fulfilling the dying wish of his friend. And then Fortinbras says, let us haste to hear it and call the noblest to the audience. For me with sorrow, I embrace my fortune. I have some rights of memory in this kingdom, which now to claim my vantage doth invite me. So Fortinbras said, if you're going to explain all this craziness, please do so and do it quickly. He says, do it with haste. And then Fortinbras realizes, well, wait a minute, if the entire royal family is dead, I'm the next in line to take over this throne. And Horatio confirms that. He says, of that I shall have also cause to speak, and from his mouth whose voice will draw on more. But let this same be presently performed, even while men's minds are wild, lest more mischance and plots and errors happen. So Horatio says, I agree, you do have right to the throne, and Hamlet has already said that as well. But he said, look, we need to do this quickly because people are going to start freaking out when they find out the whole royal family is dead. Okay, so Fortinbras says, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let 4 captains bear Hamlet like a soldier to the stage, for he was likely, had he been put on, to have proved most royal. And for his passage, the soldiers' music and the right of war. Speak loudly for him. Take up the bodies, such a sight as this becomes the field, but here shows much amiss. Go, bid the soldiers shoot. Exit marching, and a peal of ordnance shot off. So Fortinbras says, he very nobly and honorably says, take Hamlet's body and treat it like the body of a king. So full burial rites, honor him. He needs to have like a soldier's burial. And usually when this play is performed, they have a very dramatic taking up of Hamlet's body. I'm going to put a link in for the version of the play that I normally watch in class, and they do a beautiful job with this at the end. Just be ready if you are going to watch that video. It's like 4 hours long, so yeah. But that is the end. You made it to the end of Hamlet. Yay!